Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the City of Oxnard Planning Commission for Thursday, September 19, 2024. The meeting will come to order at 6 p.m. The public may view the meeting from home on the city's website, Spectrum Channel 10, Frontier Channel 35, or the city's YouTube website. To participate in the meeting, the public may provide comments to the Planning Commission via email at planning@oxnard.org no later than 3 p.m. on the day of the meeting or through the city's website at oxnard.org/city-meetings or call the Planning Division office at 805-385-7878. Additionally, those wishing to speak can dial the phone number listed at the bottom of the screen, follow the instructions to access the meeting, and press star 9 to raise your hand, indicating your intention to speak on the agenda item being discussed. Madam Secretary, can we have the roll call, please?
Chair Arejo.
Present.
Vice Chair Dr. Stewart.
Present.
Commissioner Lopez.
Here.
Commissioner Connolly. Here. Commissioner Nash.
Present.
Commissioner Schulke.
Present.
We have a quorum.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. We will now move on to the Pledge of Allegiance. Commissioner Connolly, will you kindly lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance? Thank you, Commissioner Connolly. The next agenda item is C, public comments on items not on the agenda. At this time, a person may address the Planning Commission on matters within the jurisdiction of the Planning Commission, including information consent items and any time not appearing on the agenda. The Planning Commission cannot take action on any item presented during public comments that is not on the agenda, and such item may only be referred to the Commission Secretary. Persons wishing to speak on public hearing items should do so at the time of the public hearing. Madam Secretary, are there any public comments for items not on the agenda?
No, Chair, there are none.
Thank you. And the next agenda item is D, consent agenda, the minutes for August 15, 2024. If there are no corrections offered, a motion to approve is in order. Commission. Commissioner Dr. Lopez.
So moved. I'll second.
It's been moved by Commissioner Dr. Lopez and seconded by Vice Chair Dr. Stewart to approve the minutes as distributed. Any deliberation on the motion before us? Seeing none, Madam Secretary, can we have the roll call, please?
Commissioner Dr. Lopez.
Aye.
Commissioner Dr. Stewart.
Aye.
Commissioner Nash.
Aye.
Commissioner Connolly.
Abstain.
Commissioner Schulke.
Aye.
Chair
Arejo.
Aye.
This motion passes.
Thank you all. The next item on the agenda is section. The next is section E, ex parte declarations for public hearing items. Please state any ex parte declarations, if any. I'll move across the dais. Commissioner Nash.
Thank you. I did have the opportunity to, thanks to the access code that was provided to us, to visit Nash Lane. And that's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Nash. Commissioner Connolly.
I had intentions of going by as well, but I did not, but I did do a Google Earth image search, so that's kind of on the cusp.
Thank you very much, Commissioner Connolly. Commissioner Dr. Lopez.
None, thank you.
Thank you. None. Oh, I'll go Vice Chair Dr. Stewart first.
None, thank you, Chair.
Thank you. And Commissioner Schulke.
None, thank you.
Thank you. And for myself, none. And I believe, while slightly related, I just want to note that I did review the video of this item that was before the Planning Commission 2 weeks ago because of my absence. Thank you very much. The next item on the agenda is, yes.
Chair,
Commissioner
I'm sorry.
Schulke.
I should have said the same. Having missed the last meeting, I too watched the video.
Okay. Acknowledged. Thank you, Commissioner Schulke. The next item on the agenda is section F, public hearing. Before we proceed, the chair would like to remind the commission and members of the public for the regular order of processing a project that comes before the Planning Commission, which have been primarily set through the bylaws of the commission, ordinances approved by the City Council, and regulations adopted by the state, along with a host of other rules and procedures from every branch and level of government. With a staff presentation on the project having already been made public, staff may provide further analysis, followed by the option of an applicant presentation, and then commission members could ask both the staff and applicant questions. Following this introductory, summary, and clarifying sections, the chair will ask for any public comment and then close the public comment after both the staff and applicant have had a chance to respond to the public comment. The commission will then deliberate based on the information previously submitted, given in this and/or the previous meeting on this project, and then make a decision in accordance with the laws and regulations required of the Planning Commission. This process is to ensure that all parties who wish to are duly recognized and respected for their contributions to the Commission's deliberation process in a fair and judicious manner. The Commission appreciates all submissions so that we have the fullest amount of information to make an informed decision. Now on to agenda item F1, project name Pleasant Valley Apartments, Phase 2, Planning and Zoning Permit number 23-500-10, Special Use Permit, and 23-535-07, Density Bonus, located at 2300 Pleasant Valley Road. A request for a special use permit and density bonus to allow the construction of a two-story 48-unit apartment building within the multiple family residential with affordable housing discretionary additive zone. The proposed development includes 40 one-bedroom units and 8 two-bedroom units with 59 parking spaces, 39 standard, 16 tandem, and 4 ADA spaces, 2 motorcycle spaces, and 1 loading space. The density bonus request will allow development of an additional 16 units, which are included in the 48 total units, and will allow concessions for a reduction to the amount of required open space, a reduction to the amount of required private patio and balcony space, an increase to the maximum allowed distance to trash enclosures, and a reduction to the required landscape buffer along a scenic roadway. The project is exempt from environmental review pursuant to Section 15332 Infill Development Projects, Class 32 of the CEQA Guidelines, filed by Joseph Quigley on behalf of the owner Dance Investment Group, City Staff J. Dobrowolski, Planning Supervisor. Per Measure M, a staff presentation has been pre-recorded and the link has been posted to YouTube. Per previously approved standing rules, staff can provide a brief summary of the pre-recorded presentation in addition to other analysis at the time. If staff has any introductory comments before we go through.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I do just want to make the Planning Commission aware of several items since the last hearing. There are 2 memos to the Planning Commission. There were some questions from the Planning Commission, and then there were 2 documents submitted this evening. So I'm going to very briefly summarize those for you. The first memo talks about the previous hearing on September 5th, and it mentions specifically the Housing Accountability Act, and that should the Planning Commission decide to deny the proposed project, they must make specific written findings in addition to those findings for the special use permit. The second memo mentions a letter that was received by staff. That letter is from the California Housing Defense Fund, and that letter also speaks about the Housing Accountability Act. Thirdly, there were some questions asked by the Planning Commission of staff. Again, I'm just going to summarize those. During in the previous staff report from September 5th, there was one cell from the development consistency table that was inadvertently left blank. The proposed project does comply with the rear setback standards for the zone. There was a question about the number of units and the number of affordable units, and that is spelled out in a table in the staff report, but essentially the affordable units are calculated based on the base number of units in the zone. That is to say that the additional 50% density bonus. Those units are not subject to affordability requirements, and that is per state law. There was a question about the Planning Commission approving a different iteration of the proposed project. And the Planning Commission is the decision maker. They can, in fact, use their discretion to approve the project as they see fit. However, the Planning Commission should be aware of the state density bonus law and that certain standards are required per that density bonus law. And then there was a question regarding the maximum number of public hearings for this project. And per state law, the city shall conduct no more than 5 hearings for the housing project. To date, the city has conducted 2 hearings for this project. The first was a community workshop meeting, and the second was the previous Planning Commission hearing on September 5th. So tonight, the September 18th hearing, that will be the 3rd hearing for this project. And then I do want to mention the 2 documents that were received this evening. The first document is a letter with signatures of citizens who oppose the proposed project. And the second document is information from the applicant team regarding the proposed project. And that's it from staff at this time. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dobrowolski. We will now have the applicant present at this time, if there is any. Does the applicant have a presentation? You have 15 minutes, and you can begin when ready. Thank you.
We don't have a presentation as we had submitted and shown something on during the last hearing, but I wanted to just reiterate sort of something that I said at the last meeting, is that our intention with this project is to be a good neighbor, and we do recognize that that our neighbors are in some ways affected by this, and we have already taken steps to mitigate their concerns, and will continue to do so in good spirit and in good faith as neighbors. So, and then we also just want to reiterate that I know that there were concerns that were brought up, but as Jay mentioned, through the last few years of going through this process, everything is above board and everything has been sort of scrutinized through city staff. And so we believe that this is a legal and lawful project, and we're excited to do it. So.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that. And now at this time, we'll have members ask questions of either the applicant or staff. Before your question, please state who your question is directed to. Commissioner Connolly.
I have a question for the applicant. What's the occupancy in the Phase 1 unit?
It's been 95%.
Okay, thank you.
It's been consistent there for a few years.
Thank you, Commissioner Connolly. Any others from the commission? Commissioner Dr. Lopez.
Just curious, question to the applicant. You mentioned right now, obviously the importance of being a good neighbor and, the measures that you have taken thus far after hearing some of the neighbors' concerns. Could you share with us what some of those steps have been, just to see how, that has developed?
One in particular would be visibility. And so the fact that we have a 2-story building that overlooks some of our neighbors' homes, and our intention and plan is to put high-rise foliage to block that. And so you wouldn't be able to see either in or out, and that maintains the privacy of the neighbor. So that's just one example. But.
Fantastic. And are those going to be, younger trees or more mature trees to kind of help expedite, or has that not been determined yet?
That hasn't been determined. And that would actually have to go through the landscaping. And so I can't speak to that. Our landscapers will, but.
No.
Yeah.
Totally. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Dr. Lopez. Commissioner Nash.
Thank you, Chair. And I think, this displays the importance of doing a site visit for some of these projects, and I want to thank you for your handout. But on this top photo, I mean, that really exhibits the, I think, the main issue that the neighbors have. And that is you're building this two-story monolith, what appears to be right up next to their backyard fence. And I was just wondering, was there any discussion about, flipping this project so that row of two-story buildings was along Pleasant Valley? It seems like we could resolve a lot of these issues if that had been achieved.
I think this staff can speak specifically towards some of the environmental concerns, but I do believe that there is retention basin that we can't, there's drainage issues and environmental issues that we were limited based on the footprint and based on the lot. It is a strange and difficult lot to work with, and I believe that there are issues that we are not in control of that sort of limited where we actually could build.
Okay.
Yes, Chair, Commissioner Nash, to speak to that, the parcel is, that you mentioned in the photograph, it is an L-shaped parcel, and the roadway adjacent is East Pleasant Valley Road. That is a city-designated scenic roadway. As such, it requires a 30-foot landscape buffer, so any building wouldn't be right up against the road. But in order to locate the building in a different area on the property, there would be, it would require a different redesign. There are some drainage constraints in the proposed open space. So that's the area adjacent to Pleasant Valley Road. That is one of the concessions that the applicant is asking for as part of the density bonus.
But you can understand my concern and the neighbor's concern that, to me, this is really a violation of the summarized finding number 2. Now, that may be an incorrect interpretation of that, but I think if any of us had this two-story monolith right up against the back wall, our health would suffer. I just don't see how you can arrive at any other conclusion. And it just seems like such an easily mitigable way to, satisfy most parties by just moving this block of buildings somewhere, anywhere but along this wall. So that's really a huge concern of mine. And it seems like there's a solution, and I want to find a solution because I want you to build this. But I don't want it to, have such a heavy and high impact on the neighbors in this. I had a chance to drive through this community today, and it's a beautiful little community. But this building would really alter that aspect of this community. So I hope we can find a solution. And I am a great respecter of scenic corridors. But I don't see how this would impact the scenic corridor looking south from Pleasant Valley, because you would still maintain the east and west view shed. So I know it's kind of late. I know it's kind of late in the game to do this, but I with the meeting we had 2 weeks ago, I wasn't able to access the community, so I really had no idea just looking at the construction plans of what was involved. So I apologize for that.
It's a 20-foot setback from the building wall to the actual property line. So the rendering, yeah, it might look bigger than it is, but in reality, it's an ample amount of space. Not to mention the roadway infrastructure is already in, and there's really nowhere else to put it.
I realize that. Thank you. Does staff have anything to add?
Commissioner Nash, as just to kind of add to what Jay was mentioning, because the site is unique in the sense that first phase was developed already, that first phase and the drainage infrastructure that was required for that is partially in that front area. So in order to potentially move that up to there, it would potentially impact the adjacent development, which is not technically part of this proposal.
All right, so I mean, do you have anything to add that, you know, if this wins approval, that we will have angered this community? I mean, I know that happens sometimes, but I wish we could find a better solution.
I guess the only thing to add to that, this was one of the sites that was identified previously as part of the housing element. So that was part of that process, was identifying these sites for kind of this higher density type of development. Again, the site itself does allow for a much taller building, so they did keep it at the 2-story level as another way of kind of respecting that adjacent development. The development adjacent is a single-story development. Potentially, though, they could also build up to 2 stories if they wanted to add a second story to their residence. So in the same sense that this project would be able to go up to 2 stories, they would also potentially be able to go up to 2 stories, subject to the rules and regulations in place.
That's all. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner Nash. Any others from the commission? I have a couple of questions of my own. First, in regards to the document from Cal HDF, 2 questions. Can you remind or provide context how Cal HDF relates to Oxnard and this permit that's coming before us? And is there a reason that this notification and/or warning was sent now instead of before the first meeting?
Chair Rejo, so this group appears to be just like a nonprofit kind of housing advocacy group. Well, we don't know the exact reason why they decided to send it, because they just sent the letter. It is likely because of the conversation that happened at the first meeting where there was discussion of potentially not approving the project. So they likely saw that discussion and therefore sent this letter in response to the concern that the project may be denied by the Planning Commission. But they do this type of work kind of throughout California. So there's no specific tie to Oxnard, but just kind of through the general state of California, they are an advocacy group. So they do send these letters as well as file challenges to project denials throughout the state.
Thank you very much. And a follow-up question again to staff. If this didn't need a special use permit, it just needed a density bonus, or let's just assume it didn't need either, could it be reasonable that any development that would have been there could have been a 2-story building?
So based on what they're asking for, under the AHD, that's what required the special use permit. So they would have had to have some type of discretionary permit. Even if they did not take advantage of the AHD, they would have needed at least a DDR, which would have been a director level permit. That would have also allowed them to go up to 2 stories. The R2 base zone, so even outside of the AHD, which allows for up to 56 feet, the R2 zone, as its base zone, does also allow for, I believe, up to at least 25, but potentially 35 feet.
So I just want to confirm that regardless of this development with what they're asking for, the density bonus didn't give them the extra floor. There could have been a development that didn't have the density bonus that could have allowed a development up to 35 feet, correct?
So yes, it wasn't this project that allowed them to go that extra floor. And again, it's either 25 or 35 that I cannot remember off the top of my head right now. But either way, they would have been able to get a second story for sure.
Thank you, Mr. Pearson.
Chair, if I may just clarify, I have the zoning code in front of me. The R2 zone allows 2 stories up to 25 feet maximum height. Thank you.
Thank you both for the detail and clarification. Any others from the commission? Seeing and hearing none, at this time, I will ask the Madam Secretary, is there any other public comment not having been previously submitted? Thank you very much. At this time, we'll start off with the first speaker card, Tanya Arriaga. And you have 3 minutes.
Good evening. My name is Tanya Ariaga, and I'm a resident of the Mar Vista neighborhood, as you met me 2 weeks ago. And I am directly affected by this project. I oppose this project because it does have many concessions and waiver exemptions that to me are ridiculously reduced and do not make sense. Is it realistic that there will only be one car per one-bedroom apartment and a 1.5 parking space for a two-bedroom? I don't think so. This project also leads us to believe that it complies to all the affordable housing density bonus and AHD regulations because of only their 8 units. But reality is there's nothing affordable to them when they currently charge $2,300 and $2,500 for a one-bedroom apartment and $2,755 for a two-bedroom apartment. We're looking at gentrification at its face versus helping the current residents of Oxnard. Our quality of life will be affected with lack of privacy, noise, and traffic, like we mentioned. And I have gathered the signatures of neighbors along the L shape opposing the project who unfortunately say they have tired lives and cannot be here, but they provided their signature and phone numbers. If the developers really wanted to be our good neighbors like they say, why don't they just accept the 30 units in a one-story building or use the middle open space for some units or put the parking along our homes like it was mentioned. This project does not seem right because it's not right. Please use your planning expertise and city expertise as a valued resident here of Oxnard to better the South Oxnard community of Mar Vista. We are not remote workers infiltrating from Los Angeles who need housing. We're people who grew up in the area and have invested in this city. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Arriaga. I'll ask Madam Secretary, are there any other public comments online or in person?
No, Chair, there are none.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. We'll go to the applicant if they wish to respond to any public comment.
Thank you for that comment. I think a lot of what was just said was already been said. There are limitations on the lot, and like we can't just move the building without impacting, without downstream effects that we can't control. So there are limitations that we're working with. As far as parking, it's not 1.5 for the 2 bedrooms, it is 2, they're tandem. And there's also guest parking as part of an easement and an amenity agreement with phase 1, so there's also parking over there. So.
Thank you very much. Are there any closing remarks from staff?
Thank you, Chair. No further comments from staff. Thank you.
Thank you. The public hearing is now closed. We will now move on to deliberation. Commission. Vice Chair Dr. Stewart.
Yes, I took a long time to look at this from our Planning Commission meeting of 2 weeks ago. And a lot of what I see is because of the density bonus and the waivers and so forth, you know, are all state mandated. And it's all about affordable housing. And having worked on the housing element in the past, Oxnard, probably of all the other cities in this county, have the highest renal numbers. So we have objectives that we need to make with low-income housing and low-income housing. And so, you know, I still have the same concerns that I have, but my hands are tied because of just the state ordinance and rules that we have to comply with. Did look over, and I guess Commissioner Nash already stated, item 2 would be the only finding that we could probably address, which has to do with I'm gonna say public health and safety would be the only thing that, the other ones, that are out there, the other findings all kind of, line up with the rules and the laws that, we need to be governed by. So I just making that statement.
Thank you, Vice Chair Dr. Stewart. Any others from the commission? Commissioner Dr. Lopez.
I'm very hesitant, just with my comments, because on one hand, I really do appreciate the members of the public who came last time. I do appreciate them being here tonight. I appreciate them speaking to their neighbors. We rarely do, which is why I think it really landed hard upon us at our last meeting. And I really do appreciate Vice Chair Dr. Stewart's chairing last meeting and your steady hand, really recognizing that we could benefit from further discussion as well as additional time to study, and for some of the commissioners to even do a site visit. I'm conflicted, and I think it will echo some of the comments thus far expressed here tonight, certainly points that were considered at our last hearing. Is this project perfect? No, not many things in life are, right? All things considered, did the applicant take, every step to try and maximize the housing within reason, even limiting themselves to 2 stories when I believe it could have gone up to 5 stories, are all points well taken. The point about, adding landscaping to ultimately in time provide more of the privacy that will be lost. I hear the public, members of the public who came, who purchased their home, and I think you expressed last time that unfortunately you're not in a position to sell it yet, right? And so that is a goal that too many families are sometimes never able to achieve, and so I feel like Commissioner Nash's questioning of it just seems like we could reach a point where this could work, or where we could achieve the desirable. Probably should have happened at an earlier stage. I mean, you look at this project alone, and I think it's been 5 years in the background in staff presentation. You look at 2022, and I think that's when City Council actually took the last action for this specific site. And so I am still curious what some of the other commissioners have to say, because I just kind of feel like we are limited here as the Planning Commission with how we're able to make our decisions. One, is it aligned with the city's 2030 general plan? It's either a yes or a no. Second, the zoning, right? Is it zoned properly for this development? And again, that checks off one of the boxes or criteria that we ultimately consider. But other than that, we are really limited, I think, to the 5 criteria that Vice Chair Stewart mentioned, and that was provided to us in the memo by staff today. And I'm gonna kind of go over them because I think it's important. I think that it does serve part info purpose, educational for all of us, but the memorandum to the Planning Commission dated September 19, 2024, bottom of page 1, it says, in general terms, in order for the Planning Commission to deny the proposed housing project, the commission must adopt written findings. In order to deny a project, the approval body must determine that one of the following summarized finding applies. And this is what Commissioner Nash and Commissioner Dr. Stewart referenced to condition number 2, but there are 5 of them. The first being the housing element is in compliance. RENA has been met, permitted, or exceeds to all income categories proposed for the project. Second, as my colleagues have mentioned, project has a specific adverse impact upon the public health or safety, and there is no feasible method to mitigate or avoid impact. Third, denial is required to comply with specific state or federal law, and there is no feasible method to comply. Fourth, the project is proposed on land zoned for agriculture or inadequate water or sewer. And finally, fifth, the project is inconsistent with both zoning and general plan land use designations, and the project is not proposed on a site identified in the housing element, and there are sufficient sites to accommodate the RENA or zoning emergency shelters. And so that's really what we're limited to, right? And so whatever the decision is today, I think the applicant surely knows this, but I do want to share this for the public. You know, whatever the outcome and final decision today is, doesn't necessarily need to be rendered as the final decision. There is always an opportunity within reason, and staff will be able to advise on what the time is to be able to appeal that to the city council, which could supersede and overturn, and there has been times when the city council has overturned us, right? So, you know, just a point of information for both parties. But you know, I'm torn and at the same time just feel really limited in what we're able to do because, again, of the crisis in housing, you know, and more so of affordable housing. And it may be, you know, a smaller number than we would all want, but it's nonetheless, you know, those additional units of affordable housing for families in our community that could greatly, you know, benefit and change lives in that one hand. So I do see the concern that adverse effects, you know, that folks have expressed, but weighing that out with also just the real need. And I'll end with, I'm reminded of, you know, that off quote of not letting the, you know, perfect be enemy of the good, right? So thank you all.
Thank you, Commissioner Dr. Lopez. Commissioner Schuelke.
Thank you, Chair. I wish to thank everyone who's spoken and worked on this topic. As the newest member of this body, I've spent a good deal of time thinking about the role of a commissioner, and I believe I've learned that our role is not as a legislator or a regulator. On the Planning Commission, we in fact have many constraints, and Dr. Lopez has just spoken to them. Many of those constraints come from the state. And so I find myself often looking to the staff for guidance on code and regulation. Always appreciate their insights and work, and that'll really shape my vote this evening. I have, as the newest member on this commission, often been disappointed by the lack of turnout from the community on these topics. So I want to thank the folks who have provided public comment, and yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Schuelke. Any others? Commissioner Nash.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to briefly state that even though I was the commissioner who moved to approve this project at the last meeting, I don't think I could vote to approve it at tonight's meeting. I'd be willing to support the finding number 2, that this does have a adverse impact on the public health and safety, especially of the adjacent neighborhood to the east, and that this would be appealed to the city council, where I think that they can more appropriately make a decision on you know, how they want to deal with the not only with the applicant but also with the neighbors. So, and I'm happy if I'm the lone no vote, but I just can't approve it at this time. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Nash. With all others having spoken, I'll speak at least once now. I asked particular questions for particular reasons. In regards to the HDF, I look at the line, it requires, being the project, requires approval of zoning and general plan compliant housing development projects unless findings can be made regarding specific objective written health and safety hazards. As mentioned by some of my fellow commissioners that are conflicted, and at least to the comments laid before us now in this meeting and the previous meeting, that we're not exactly 100% in a motion to approve or deny, but thus we must make a decision to approve or deny. I'll first start with the possibility that a motion to deny could come before the commission, and I do empathize and actually would vote in favor in regards to item 2, that in regards to the visibility or the privacy concerns, that it would fall under the line that it could provide a specific adverse impact, but in my opinion, it's not enough to override the actual project fundamentals. And so while I would approve the actual motion, or I would approve that it would fit the second criteria, I would vote against the underlying motion to deny. And so, and then in the second section of my deliberation right now to the commission is that I specifically asked staff, what is the expectation, regardless of the type of development that the neighbors could have had? And so while it is nice that it was vacant right next to them, there was always the possibility now or in the future or never that a building could have been developed up to 25 feet / 2 stories. I have 2 examples, one not here in Oxnard and one in Oxnard. Working in the city of Altoona, Wisconsin, there were a lot of wooded areas right next to the development, and there were train tracks around there, and a lot of neighbors thought that they basically had the forest area to themselves as their own backyard. But unfortunately, the land was already reserved for the train to do what they want, to clear the tracks, to add buildings. And so unfortunately, they had no legal right in regards to denying anything, or there were no city bodies, state bodies, any regulatory bodies to deny the actions that the train Union Pacific could do on land that they already owned. In regards to Oxnard itself, there is a portion of the land that's technically in the county. It's a weird space, but I know I know one of the streets is Ebony Drive, but it's between there's a vacant space, and Oxnard High School. And those lines were drawn by the voters in the last decade, I'll put it that way, when they voted to approve a county ordinance SOAR and CURB, which limited the development of cities in Ventura County beyond the line established by them, but for certain very specific circumstances. One that was recently in the news in the past year in regards to farming, and then probably for other affordable housing. But there are very minor stipulations. But right now, it's nice for them because they, at least with the current ordinance, county ordinance, there's going to be no development there until 2050, unless, of course, overruled by the citizens in some way or amended. And so at this time, I would be in favor of a motion to approve, and I'll wait for the commission for any second round of deliberations, or we can start motions and or amendments to that effect. Thank you. Commission. I will start it, and I will move the recommended action by staff to find the project to be categorically exempt for an environmental review pursuant to CEQA Guidelines Section 15.332, and adopt Resolution 2024-XX approving planning and zoning permit numbers 23-500-10, special use permit, and 23-535-07, subject to certain findings and conditions. Is there a second?
Second, Chair.
Seconded by Commissioner Conley. Is there any further deliberation on the motion before us? Seeing and hearing none. Oh, Commissioner Conley.
So a couple things. I speak in support of this motion, but I definitely come from a place that's very pro homeownership and very pro homeowners. It's what I do in my professional life, it's what I do as a public servant, both here and in other volunteer organizations that I spend my time with. But I also can't ignore that the state of California is in a severe housing shortage, as mentioned in the Cal Housing Defense Fund memo, and I don't think that it would show me being a good citizen of this community to deny proposed housing projects in whatever facet they may come in. I would love to rebuild vacant lots all day, but that's not my job. So I think that the applicant really proposed a manageable and responsible proposal in a very challenging situation. And I hope that everyone can work together to really be good neighbors and to help solve this housing shortage that we're experiencing in California, because it's not good for anyone. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Conley. Vice Chair Dr. Stewart.
Yes, I would probably vote in favor of this because I looked over the last few days, kept going around and around over the 5 findings that we have. Just because of the law arena and the general plan and all of those other things, these other 4, we can't do anything about. In other words, there's no argument there. And then I looked at 2, and that seems like that was the only one that we could object to. But I guess I just don't have an argument that's strong enough to support that. In other words, public health, safety, I know what the concerns are. I have those same concerns, but I don't know that I could, stand on either of those, any of those, for these 2 items. So I just wanted to make that remark.
Thank you, Vice Chair Dr. Stewart. Any others from the commission at this time? Seeing and hearing none, and Madam Secretary, can we have the roll call, please?
Chair Arejo,
Aye.
Commissioner Connolly,
Yes.
Commissioner Dr. Lopez,
Aye.
Commissioner Nash,
No.
Commissioner Schuelke,
Aye.
Vice Chair Dr. Stewart.
Aye.
This motion passes.
Thank you, Commission, and thank you, members of the public, and thank you, staff. Appreciate it. We'll move on to Section G, study sessions and reports, and with no study session and reports, we'll move on to Planning Commission business. Commission. Seeing none, I will go with mine, and I will thank profusely Vice Chair Dr. Stewart for chairing a 3rd meeting of part or all of the meeting. I greatly appreciate it. My intention is that you won't have to chair for the rest of our respective terms, so it's very much appreciated. Thank you so much. In regard to the previously approved resolution of the Planning Commission of the City of Oxnard pertaining to compensation for members of the Planning Commission, the Chair selects Vice Chair Dr. Stewart and Commissioner Dr. Lopez to represent the Commission regarding the aforementioned resolution. And in an update in regards to that passed by the Planning Commission is that I was able to present as the Chair of the Planning Commission on behalf of the Planning Commission to the City Council on public items not on the agenda at the past City Council meeting, September 17, and requested that they agendize the resolution and the inclusion and the ordinance that was included in the resolution. And Councilman Tehran did request that, and so we'll see what happens or when it's going to be put on the relevant City Council committee, and I hope to let the Commission know about that when it happens. So thank you very much. We'll move on. If there's no Planning Commission business that we thought of, one last thing. There are going to be candidate forums hosted by the Inter-Neighborhood Council Organization by City of Oxnard, September 30, City Clerk, United Water Conservation District, and City Treasurer on October 2, City Council Districts 3 and 4, and October 9, City Council District 6, and the Mayor. I will be the moderator for all of them except for the United Water Conservation District. So come and be entertained and be informed. So thank you very much. Now I'll move on to Section I, Community Development Staff Update. Is there any update from the Community Development Staff? Mr. Pearson.
Commissioner, so just one, which is the Lockwood 3 project, did go to the City Council at the Tuesday City Council meeting, and the City Council did approve the project, and they did deny the appeal that was filed. So they upheld the Planning Commission's decision approving the SUP for that project. And then we do have 2 items that will be coming to the next October 3rd meeting. One of them will be a returning item, the Mr. Car Wash project. There was a small issue with the Zoom and individuals being able to make a comment. So we're bringing it back so that an individual can make a comment at that meeting. So that item will be back, as well as one additional banquet facility item. And that's all.
Follow-up question in regards to the car wash public comment. Can you detail at this time what it is, or will you include it in your staff memo, and that's fine?
So we'll reference it in the staff memo.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Pearson. Ms. Roselle, any update from you?
Nothing at this time, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Roselle. Since there is no further business, the meeting will be adjourned if there is no objection. Seeing and hearing none, the meeting is adjourned. Thank you all and good night.